Okay, so today's project is going to be front wheel hubs, rotors, and brake pads on a 2008 Jeep Grand Cherokee. You can see I already did this side, so what I'm going to do is finish this up. I'll throw this wheel back on, and then we'll do the other side together, and I'll show you exactly how I did it. Okay, so before I start taking off the wheel and the other side, let me just show you what I pulled off of the driver's side. So this is the back of the rotor here, and you can see that it's pretty worn pretty badly. I was getting a lot of scraping noise when I was driving, and you could see the pad here. It's quite a mess. It's got a lot of grooves in it. So when I did these pads the last time, I actually went the cheap route and didn't replace the rotors. I just kind of sanded and refinished them up a little bit, grinded them, wire wheeled them, but they're definitely ready to be replaced. The front is not bad. What I noticed also when I took these apart is the slide pin on the caliper bracket was not working correctly. So it was stuck. So just keep that in mind when you take yours apart. You'll know. So the other thing that I replaced was this wheel hub. So these were $50 from Amazon. So I got two of these. They're not really making a lot of noise, but I figured it was worth replacing. I also bought this guy here to pull them off. So I'll show you how I do that. And then this dust cover, it's in pretty bad shape, so I pulled this off and I'm not going to reuse it. All right, let's get the other side up in the air and show you how to take this apart. So let's get these lugs cracked loose. So I've had these tires off multiple times, so these should come off pretty easy. Okay, so at this point my wireless microphone lost its connection, so I'm going to go through this and just voice over some of the things that I was pointing out. So behind this center cap is a axle nut, and they can be difficult to crack loose. Sometimes you're able to go through the center cap with the socket, and you can crack them loose with the tire on the ground, which is probably the easiest way. But I was not able to do that because the socket would not fit through the center. So I was able to just crack it loose. They were tight, but they weren't, crazy tight. So at this point, I'm just getting the jack stand and jack set up, and I'm going to bring the camera underneath and give you guys a better look of where exactly I'm putting everything. Okay, so here it is from underneath. You can see where I have the jack. It's basically just the frame rail, and then right behind the jack is the jack stand. That is the pinch weld. You can also put a jack stand underneath that too if you wanted to. What I usually do is I put, majority of the weight on the stand, but I also leave the jack in place with pressure on it also, just so that I have 2 points of contact. And so, yeah, I'm just going to fix that pin in the jack stand and lower it down, and we'll be all set to take the wheel off. The next thing we're going to do is pull the wheel off, and I was pointing out that if you ever have a stuck wheel or rim to the wheel hub, one easy thing that you can do is just loosen up the lug nuts a little bit. So, back them off of tight and, a turn or two just to leave them loose, but make sure that they're all on, and do that to all 5. And in my case, what I do is I just back the car down the driveway. I make a sharp turn, and then I pull the car back in, and it always seems to work, and it cracks them loose with no issue. So you don't have to, bang on them or try to pry them off. Okay, so now that the wheel is off, that is the axle nut, that is the socket. In this case, it's a 36 millimeter. And I'm going to go ahead and crack it loose here, and I just use a 1/2 inch ratchet with a breaker bar on it. You could probably do something to hold it if you needed to. This car is four-wheel drive, so that axle is kind of locked in place already with the transmission, but it's not great to put too much pressure on it. But in this case, the nut just it did crack loose pretty easy, so I guess I got lucky. And of course, always good to just spray everything down. And then yeah, just put the breaker bar on it and you'll see how easy it turns, just like that. So that's one of the harder parts of the job. Once that thing is cracked loose, then the rest of it should be pretty easy. Alright, so the next thing that I'm going to do is remove the caliper bolts, and in this case it is a 15 millimeter. So those are pretty easy to crack loose. There's two, one on the top, one on the bottom. So I'm just going to pull those. I just pulled up both of those off, and this caliper was stuck on there pretty good, I guess. So I had to pry it a little bit, and I just pried it, I guess, from the top and bottom, and yeah, it eventually comes off. And one thing that I noticed also was the pins on the caliper bracket were they were not sliding in back and forth the way that they should, so that was definitely contributing to the bad wear on the brake pads. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is tie up the caliper so that it's not hanging on the brake line. So I'm just using a piece of 14 gauge Romex, and I'm just going to put it through the center and just basically tie it up out of the way for now. And I think that I have the other end on the spring. There's plenty of places to be able to tie it up to, and you just want to make sure that the brake line is not being pulled or stressed in any way. Alright, so next thing is the caliper bracket. So I forget what size that is. I think it's 7/16. But yeah, pretty straightforward. Came out no problem. I did, I guess, use a bar just to crack them loose. Alright, so now that bracket is off, the rotor can also come off. In this particular case, there's a rubber O-ring in the on the front of it, and you can see me taking it off there, and then the rotor just came right off. That is the wheel hub. That's getting replaced also, so we can now remove the axle nut completely. Then I just take a piece of wood and just get it loose and give it a little bit of spray, although I'm not really sure it's going to do all that much. Alright, so the next thing that needs to happen is there are 3 bolts that hold the wheel hub in place. So there's one on the top, and then 2 more bottom left, bottom right. Pretty easy. I just used a breaker to get them loose, and they pretty much came right out. Alright, so I'm just going to give you a close-up. You could see how well that that's on there. It's pretty rusted. There's a couple of different methods out there to get these off. Some of them involve cutting off the lugs and opening up a hole or holes, and then using a system of nuts and bolts to kind of force it out, say at the top and bottom. But this method that I use with this bracket that I bought seemed to work really well. It actually came loose with one hit. So that's the bracket. I got that on Amazon. That was the cheapest one. I think it was like $37. And then I just used two washers. It does come with hardware. Two washers, and then the lug nuts. And then once it's pretty secure, you can start whacking away at it. And you'll see. I'm gonna show you. When I did the other side, I was hoping that I could get it with a regular hammer, which is not a smart idea. So you may think that you can hit that thing with a regular hammer, but you cannot. It doesn't have the same effect as like an 8-pound sledgehammer. So, to do this job properly, you need the sledgehammer. That's another $26. But in this case, it was definitely worth it because I didn't have to fight with it at all. So you're going to see, if you just watch it, you're going to see how quickly it cracks loose. And yeah, it really only takes, a couple of hits, and it's pretty much ready to come off. So I'm just trying to get stuff moved out of the way so I can get a good swing at it, getting myself lined up. And that's one, and it basically broke free with that one. But if you tried to do that with a regular hammer, you would be there for a while. So now that it's cracked loose, you'll see what it looks like. Obviously, it's coming out from the top first. So I've seen some videos where people just keep hammering it until it completely falls off. But I don't know. I didn't want to damage the gear, in the axle. So I think I just take a pry bar and just grab it from the bottom and work it out. Okay, so I'm going to cut off the ABS sensor wire, and I'm going to give this a couple more hits, and then I don't know why I'm hitting it with that, but yeah, that doesn't do anything. Basically, all I needed to do was to just get a pry bar underneath, because like I said, it's coming out from the top, so I just need to get it loose from the bottom, and then it pulls straight out. Alright, so now that is out, I can get rid of that dust cover. You can see how rusted that is, so I'm not going to reuse that. The wheel hubs themselves were not bad, but I figured I would change them anyway. Given that they were about $50 each, I thought that was a pretty good deal. So the next thing to do is to pretty much get everything cleaned up and ready for reassembly. We just got to make sure all the mating surfaces are nice and clean and flat. So in this clip, I'm basically just cleaning up the caliper bracket. I'm also gonna go through and clean up the pins that are in there. And you can see I'm just using a wire wheel, and I'm just gonna go through and just polish them up a little bit. I definitely want to get the part of the bracket where the stainless steel hardware fits for the brake pads. So yeah, wear a mask because this makes a lot of dust. And yeah, so I'm going to clean this up and move on to where the hub is going to meet up with the rest of the assembly. So for the pins, what I'm going to do is clean out the bracket itself also. What you don't want is a lot of grease at the bottom, because it's not going to compress all the way. So you want to just make sure you obviously clean up the pins. But if you think that bracket is in bad shape, what I did was I sprayed some brake cleaner on the inside, and then I used a towel with something that I could put in there and kind of just clean it up. So once I get this cleaned up, then we can grease the pins, and this will be ready to go back on the car. So when you grease the pins, you don't want to get a lot of grease like at the very tip on the bottom, where it could settle, on the bottom of the bracket, and then you'll have problems with them compressing. So, just enough to kind of get it greased up there on the top, and you should be good to go. And just wipe off the excess, and I dropped that one, so I had to redo it. Alright, so the next thing is to just clean off what we have left here. What I did is just scraped off the heavier stuff, and then I'm going to come back with a wire wheel and clean off that outside mating surface. And I'm also going to clean on the inside because the new hub, or the older hub, they it went inside there where that gear is for the wheel axle. So same deal, I just used a wire wheel and did all around there where I'm pointing to. And yeah, just make sure you get all this stuff cleaned up real good. And then when I go to reinstall this, I'm going to use a little bit of anti-seize just around the outside and a little bit on the inside. Not that this will probably ever need to be removed, but just in case. And then I use that same Romex wire just to kind of get that out of the way. Yeah, it wasn't actually too bad. I was able to get that wire wheel pretty much on the inside all the way around, and just like that. Yeah, it worked pretty good. So here I just wanted to show you some of the parts that I ordered. So that's the other wheel hub. Yeah, looks good. Came in 2 days. It has the ABS sensor. Everything about the sensor and the wire was correct. All of the clips and clamps. It plugged right in just like it should. And then the brakes, you can see I got from Detroit Axle, also from Amazon. So those were, I think, $125 for the front set. So about $225 for the hubs and the brake change, and then $25 for the sledgehammer, and like another $40 for the tool to get the hubs off. So I would say right around $300 for everything. So now that I have the new hub in place, I can get that ABS sensor wire in place. And I basically just kind of left the old one there and did one piece or a couple pieces at a time, just so that I would know how it goes back together. But like I said, the wheel hub, it came correct. It was perfect fit for this car. So this is pretty standard, just kind of go through and work it all the way back to the connector. Okay, so I didn't get it on camera, but the connector is easy. There's like a red clip that you just push forward, and then there's a tab that you just press and it pulls apart. So I'm going to compress the caliper pistons, and so I usually just use a C-clamp like this and an old brake pad, and get them flat. What I usually do is I'll dry fit the pads, in the bracket, and then make sure that the caliper is going to fit once it's all greased up. So yeah, I got that rubber back in for the rotor, showing where to put the grease. So I'm using the grease that came with the brake kit, and what I usually do is I put some on the tabs, the tabs that are gonna ride in the stainless steel hardware, just like that, top and bottom. And then you could put a little bit in the hardware itself. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Make sure that you clean the underside of the rim also before you reinstall it. That would be like the last thing. And of course the hub is brand new, so there's nothing to clean there. And yeah, it was a pretty easy job all in all, and I was able to save a pretty good amount of money. So there's the rim, and there it is, all finished. So thanks guys, let me know if you have any questions.